Hello and welcome to the Zyra Jungle Ultimate Carry Guide. We will go over absolutely everything you need to know to maximize Zyra from the jungle position. Riot have buffed her clay, so it's really fast. You're seeing it in pro play now, although it's pretty incorrect, which is why I'm making this guide. So in solo queue and in pro play, you guys can all have significantly more success. We will go over all of the abilities for those who don't exactly know, plant wall locations that you can use, combos, runes, and itemization, which we will have a huge discussion on, and obviously first clear discussions, roots, jungling, as well as high-level solo queue 1v9 gameplay. I've been playing this champion for 10 years in jungle. I made a guide way back in season 9 already on this using every bit of technology. I have over 2 million points on the champion. This is what I'm passionate about. Let's get to it. Here is her main damage ability, and it scales with CDR. That means as you rank that up, you're gonna have 5 seconds on cooldown versus 7 seconds at rank 1. It does have a little bit of a cast time, but as you can see, the base damage goes quite high, and you can kind of position it around you in an interesting way geometrically. This is important for plants when we get to that. And this is the reason you max this for faster clearing, faster poke, faster damage, everything. This allows you on lower cooldown to spam a high damage spell. The E, however, has been a classical max because it is a thing. Even though it doesn't scale with CDR, it does give you a longer root duration. Thus, if you're looking for hardcore all-ins, you want a 2-second root time instead of 1 second, that's a lot of time in League of Legends and provides a lot of value. The problem is it also has a cast time, it has a relatively slow travel speed, and obviously it can be easily dodged. It's better off as a secondary CC spell, although good Zyras, as you see, will be able to hit beautiful max range E's all the time. That comes from experience and game time. And even though they lowered and baselined the lockout timer from E so you can still move around pretty quickly afterwards, there are some E-flash interactions. Main important thing is, like all E-flash interactions, you press E and then flash. This means the reaction time for this spell is significantly less. You press E and then flash versus pressing flash and then E, and you can see the difference on your screen now. The big difficulty is not flashing too soon after your E, or you're gonna have what looks like this, which is just a little bit funny. It also goes exactly where your cursor is, so if you happen to have your cursor behind you, then you're gonna look like this. The base damage on this is lower than Q and has a lower AP ratio as well. Now here's the poison IV juice. Zyra's passive is the thing that gives you plants that spawn out of her every 13 to 9 seconds scaling. This gives you vision periodically for 1 second, and they will live for 30 seconds. As a reminder, the maximum amount of Cs that we can have placed happen to be 8. Now with your W, these plants will last for 60 seconds instead of 30 seconds, and you can charge up to 2 at a time. Here's your usefulness though. You can use it as a kind of sampling thing because when someone steps on it, it reveals them for 2 seconds. However, you also must know that killing an enemy generates 35% recharge time towards your W, and that works even when killing a ward. So make sure you track your W times and get used to having them up quite frequently. Also, when you kill a jungle monster or a champion, that's 100% refund, so in fights you can be quite dynamic. Now the idea is to use your W with your Q and E abilities. What we should always be doing is using the ability and then the W, because that guarantees an absolute hit on that plant spawning. It also allows you to change where you want to place a W plant depending on, what the enemy champion actually does. The Q plants, when you spawn those, will have a range of 575 units. The E plants will have a range of 400 units. The damage is the same and everything else is the same except for the fact that the E plants stack a 30% slow. Hit someone with an E and proc your W, they will be slowed by 30%. Hit another E plant W by maybe using 2 W charges, guess what? They're now stacked and slowed by 60%. Absolutely huge to remember this when we get to the combo section. And as a general rule, there is a large area of forgiveness for being able to use your plant spawn. You can proc your Q or your E, which have cast times, and hit a plant really late in that animation and still get the plant to spawn. It's also good to know that you can really have a big area of effect around the Q, so if you want to hit someone who's running away, for example with a tick damage on your Leandries as we build, you can hit the max range goodness. Simply use your Q, hit your plants, even if the Q doesn't hit the plants, we'll do the damage and get the kill like you see in this gank as well.
Death.
Zyra's R has 2 phases, 1 the damage and 2 the knockup. That's why the damage goes through quickly. That knockup comes up after 2 seconds, so you've got to time it correctly as well. A lot of damage comes through from this, and what it also does to all of the plants in the area that you hit is it restores 50% of the current HP, increases their max HP by 50%, they do some genetic doping and get a lot bigger, and they attack in a full flurry with a hell of a lot more damage. And obviously people think they should save this spell for you to max range team fights and things like that. I'm going to show you how to use it like this as an assassin because that's also what she's damn good at. And understanding when to use your ultimate is basically how you would think about playstyle for Zyra later in the game. You can obviously be engage and disruption. You can be spacing and kind of separating teammates on the enemy team from each other. You are also the disengage when your team is compromised and you need to run away and go back to base. Effectively, the best use of Zyra in team fights later in the game, in those skirmishes to actually play around the runes and builds we'll talk about later, is your positioning and where and when you use your ultimate. You can flank and hit it off the wall if you wanted to. I mean, that's exactly what I do if I need to be an assassin. But obviously, if you have Comet, if you have Electrocute, it doesn't really matter. What you're looking to do is place that ultimate and those plants effectively based upon the composition you have and the composition they have. Do not forget, if you need to peel and just keep your teammates alive, it's very easy to do. You just place it on yourself, place it on your ADC, keep them alive. Enemy team tries to engage, and now there's a big space between their front line and the back line. It allows the rest of your team to do their job, or you simply kite him back as a unit before you chase them down. You're also a very strong pick-based champion, much like an Elise. If you can unleash your full combo and you're fed, especially from the jungle, you never really need to set up for team fights, and that's a lot of what I like to talk about. Now for maxing abilities, obviously QEW max is the best way for jungle. Absolutely insane rinse clears, high damage after the E got nerfed a while back. Emax has better all-in, but you will feel the loss of map control with your fast farming. You might as well maximize that playstyle. Q also has CDR scaling, and E doesn't, so that does factor in a little bit. With the Q CD and damage being so much higher, it also means that if another jungler shows doing badness, or being weird, or who knows what's going on in most MMRs, you can steal their camps so quickly and so easily. Now, if you have a very strong all-in comp, you're in pro play, you're in Flux 5s, you're in any sort of organized play, then Emax is still absolutely terrible. Don't do it. What you can do though is go 3 times Q, which will inherently allow you to farm a lot quicker in the first phases of the game, and then you can max that E so that you have it in 5 points by the time you want to have team fights, mid-game spikes, what have you. You have the damage follow-up from your team, you have the initial CC from your team as well. It's why Zyra does so well with prior mid lane and a CC support. It allows me to move around the map with absolute ease, out farming, counter jungling, out tempoing absolutely everybody, also prior for grubs and dragons, but it also gives you an absolute guaranteed free gank in the bottom lane when your Leona, Nautilus, or Thresh go in, and you can follow up with a guaranteed E route. Right, a couple plant wall locations specifically for jungle before we get into combos, runes, and first clears. Initially, your plants will be killed and won't be able to kill a lot of camps over the wall, or any camps over the wall. However, on your first clear, once you've finished your red, it's very easy to simply level up your W, hit a W over the wall into a Q2 procs, and smite the Krugs. This then lets you attack it over the wall. Once a big Krug is killed, a W gets refreshed, you should have a Q coming off cooldown, 7 seconds rank 1, you can activate another plant and walk all the way over to Raptors. No one in Pro is doing this because they don't know, I guess, but you should all be doing this 100%, unless of course you have bad RNG on your red, and it's just better to smite it and walk around the wall. Later on in the game though, things get a lot more interesting. If you happen to be behind or counter jungling or in some weird position where you can take wolves, look at where you can stand, especially with Leandries already, you don't really need much more. Also, when you are in a negative game state, when you're being pushed out of your own jungle, it's really easy to do the grump over the wall, smite it, and be very, very safe. Don't need to smite it, but you know, it's good to do so. You can do the same thing for blue buff, even if you're on your first clear being invaded. One of my favorite ones is if you're playing a game and you want to counter jungle some raptors or counter jungle your own raptors as you move up the mid lane, you don't need to walk over the wall or around walls beyond a certain point. You got Leandries, you got smite, off you go. You can do almost any camp over a wall. Alright, we've covered the abilities, let's now look at combos, because once you understand combos, the runes discussion is going to make a hell of a lot more sense, as well as how you actually play the champion. The most important combo that you can ever do is your main poke. Q, W, auto attack. Place your Q, place your W, hit an auto attack. That's because the plant will hit the closest thing to it and you want it to hit the champion, so auto attack the thing you want to hit. This will also allow you to hit an electrocute proc, which is really a little bit obscene when you just use this simple combo. Against champions that might have shields and things like that, you can place 2 plants to maximize your damage, get through the shield, but now you're a little bit vulnerable, you don't have any other plants to use, especially if your passive isn't off cooldown. If the enemy has absolutely no dash whatsoever and you're going for a gank here, and you know that you have a guaranteed kill, you don't always need to open with anything, you can just simply go with an EWW. This will give you that stack 60% slow even if your root doesn't hit, and then you can follow that up with an absolute guaranteed Q, This is useful in lanes, in trades, in gangs, in fights, in skirmishes, or simply in disengage. If you're being run down by a Viego or something, hit your E plus 2 Ws, they're either rooted and slowed for 60%, or, they're just slowed for 60%, and now you can run home to Batman. For your ganks in your fights, you've got a regular, non-ultimate all-in combination. For ganks, it's really great to use your QW first. You can watch them use their gap close as their flash, or watch their body move in a way which allows your E to be guaranteed hit. This means we go QW, EW, and obviously auto attack weaving in there, and you keep playing around the plants as much as possible. You can obviously also against immobile targets, or if they're really out of range and you are a really good Zyra and you can hit this E reliably, you're able to understand movement and have good hand-eye coordination, EW, QW. What this allows you to do is hit the root first, maximize your Q damage, and then keep auto-attacking all the time. Auto-attacking all the time, even though it feels weird, it doesn't do a lot of damage, it directs your plants to the target. And as you can see from this Vayne gank, sometimes if you just damn well miss your spells, as a ranged jungler, you allow yourself to get kills just through that mechanism alone. Now where things get a little bit spicy is with your full combo in the ultimate. Your all-in simply adds an R at the end of it. So if you go for a QW-EW or EW-QW, you're slapping in an R at the end. This means you've got your high-range plant, your slow plant, and now an ultimate that's juiced up the plants, plus going to knock everybody up. The positioning of this is important. You want to try and make sure you're hitting in the middle. This gives you a full 360-degree circle where the enemy, wherever they go, will be affected by your damage, your autos, and your plants. The classic combo is obviously EW, QWR because that allows you to hit the root, guarantees the knockup, gives you max range plants when they try and dash away, and a lot of champions, hilariously, will try and flash out of your ultimate if you center it. And guess what? You hit the root, they get damaged, they think, aha, better flash out quickly, and then they get knocked up at the end because they don't realize that the knockup comes 2 seconds after the damage. But you do, because you know. Now what you can also do when they really can't escape is go QWR, get that juice knocked up, and then you can hit the EW afterwards to guarantee the slow, which again just keeps them in the vicinity. This is also a really great combo if someone dashes into you, jumps onto you like an assassin. So you want to immediately activate your plants, get the knockup, create some space from them, and then you can E them afterwards. The best use of your E often is to hold on to it and wait for the perfect moment. Don't engage with it blindly if you don't think you can hit it. Try and bait it out with a QW. You get the slow from say your Rylai's or your Red Pet, and then you can ult followed by an E or E followed by an R. It's really dependent on the situation. Now when you are in fog of war and you have great pathing and great positioning as a jungler lane ganks or just skirmishes in a game, one of the greatest combos you can do is the EWR QW because they're stunned, they're guaranteed to be knocked up, and then you can hit your plant afterwards, maximize the Q damage, prevent them from being able to get out because they've been rooted and knocked up immediately, and then obviously you get the extended range from that Q plant as well. Largely it comes down to the situations you're using, but all of those combos, while relatively simple, it's just the order of events. Look at this kill here that I get on a Vex who's a level ahead of me. I see her coming, I go into the bush, she then jumps onto me. Instead of using the QWR combo as I mentioned, I use the E combo because I need to ensure she stops moving and I create some space. I immediately EW and then R. What this allows me to do is create that distance while she's rooted, and then I can hit my QW afterwards. However, you will note, and this is very important for your W usage, that my W was not off cooldown. However, I used my Q immediately to guarantee the damage on her, and then I hit my W as it came off cooldown. You can see the range of forgiveness in that spawn. Most Zyras will never ever hit the W thinking, oh, it's too late for me to use it. It's not too late. There's a high level of area and time forgiveness on plant activation. And obviously don't forget, you can use your plants and abilities to block Thrashes and Blitzcranks. Not always the easiest thing to do, but it's important that you understand it's a possibility. Now my Rune page is the one I've tested for thousands of games, and I will show you that in a second. Obviously the Comet page is the one that's popular at the moment. I disagree vehemently with this page, however it is definitely better if you want to go more for a teamfight skirmishing kind of composition, as Zyra is one of the best Comet abusers in the game because of the refresh getting that off cooldown frequently within fights. The problem is that is way better in lane when you're gonna frequently use it than in jungle when you go for a gank or fight. You want to have a lot more damage in that moment. We'll talk about that in a second. So while I am not a fan of the Comet, and I recommend most of you do not go that for all the reasons I've shown and all the examples I've shown, it does have a better place and more organized play. If you look at the Rune page being run quite commonly, you'll see that the problem is the mana flow blend. You just don't need it. It's useless. You have it in itemization, especially if you do it properly. We'll talk about that in a second. The best way for you to play this is actually to go Nimbus Cloak. It gives you that mini phase rush when you smite and when you flash in and out of fights. Zyra needs to flash a lot for engages, but also needs a flash for disengages. Having that movement speed on an engage allows you to actually move around with the ghosting aspect of it a lot better than otherwise. So you're allowed to, move in and out of the fight and move around your plants. Transcendence and Haste are absolutely beautiful on this champion because we want to lower those cooldowns and get those refreshes as much as possible. Water walking is obviously going to be better when you want to float between the rivers and actually do objectives around those fights, or fights around those objectives. So after having done probably more testing on these runes over 10 years than literally anybody else, I will say that Electrocute is by far the most reliable. Dark Harvest, you're not going to be stacking that nearly as much as you think. The damage is not reliable, it's honestly a bait. First Strike, likewise better for lane, bit of a bait. Conqueror you can do, but then again, why? What are you gaining from this? Well, I get a bit of healing and some APs bonuses on my stacks. Yes, that doesn't mean anything. That's not what the champion actually wants to accomplish. And the whole thing is also about deliberate damage versus incidental damage. If I hit 2 comets in a fight and get that on my stats, it looks good. But if it hits, someone who's leaving the fight and someone else is leaving the fight and they're never going to be in kill threat, then really the damage didn't do anything. Versus Electrocute hitting on a guaranteed target that you want to kill and removing them from the fight. That is a balance that you have to assess when picking between these runes, and I think you know where I lie. We want Electrocute. It maximizes damage at all phases. It allows you to do a QW auto attack combo, and when you have the secondary page on your screen now with Cut Down as well as Hazed, you are basically full chunking an Udyr and saying, go away, this is my herald. You are full chunking enemies in ganks and fights and skirmishes, and now they are mentally compromised seeing that damage come out. There's a psychological aspect as well. I call this the HP war, because if you win the HP war, you win the next subsequent fight, especially if you maximize your haste in the game, and you do that with itemization as well as your shard. It also means if you see a Senna in the river, she dies. You see a Teemo in the river later on in the game, he dies. You see someone out of position later in the game, they die. You get caught out in a team fight because you're trying to make a fight that your team didn't realize you could make, and you just kill the Soraka. You do not need the added damage from a random comet. You do not need the added stacks from your Conqueror. What you need is an absolute obliteration, assassination, at least maximization of a target. Your plants and your itemization and your runes together will then do all the extra damage you need. Observe pro play. Here we have a Dark Harvest rune, dies under turret. No Electrocute, which means no dead pig. Twisted Fate now has to ult, compromising a way better macro play, and thus they lose the game from this. Even Canyon, who did a really good job early, later on in the game goes for an all-in on a Yone. The guy lives with 34 HP. Guess what? If you have Electrocute, which does 32 more damage at this point in Comet at level 7, he dies. Now you're saying, but that's 34, not 32. Guess what? He's chugging his refillable or his health potion for the duration. Also, the Electrocute, because it's sudden, equals you're dead. There's also a subtle extra bonus thing that we need to talk about here. If you went Electrocute in the situation as Canyon, you would also have Cheap Shot. You would also have Eyeball Collection. You would also have Ultimate Hunter. All of these things add up to more damage with Electrocute, and that's a dead Yone. These are not to be wasted. If you're going to take a rune that is used for a specific moment in time to guarantee a play, especially in pro play, especially in solo queue, you want to maximize that moment. If you go for the comets, you go for those other conditional runes, you're not maximizing the moments when you actually need them, and the champion won't get the leads she can actually get. Yes, Taste of Blood in lane is better than Cheap Shot, but hey, we're in the jungle, Taste of Blood is useless. Cheap Shot is best if you're always going to be high HP. Guess what when you're ganking? You're high HP, yes. For organized play, I would recommend you to perhaps go for the zombie ward instead of the eyeball, because obviously you can just clear wards, get free stacks, and then what you can do, Relentless gives you out of combat movement speed, that's great, but I don't need out of combat movement speed in combat. Mages need mobility, need CC, need cooldowns in fights. So me moving around the map can be done with better tracking, pathing, extrapolation, and honestly just understanding jungle spacing. And Treasure Hunter gives me a little bit extra gold, but I don't value that nearly as much after the removal of Futures Market. The big thing about Zyra Jungle previously to when she's viable like now, she wasn't viable, she was off meta, she was trash. How did I maximize my champion? I said, well, the problem is enemy junglers, and they can still do this, can all in, rush at me, push me out of the game, and in solo queue, that's what they're doing, and that's what you should do to counter her. Don't let her chill and farm. So when I was getting run down all the time, I noticed that even after the cooldown buff on the ultimate a couple of years ago, I'm still basically just Eing someone, and if they have Edge of Night, I'm doomed. I need to have more CC, more ways to disengage situations. Thus, I need my ultimate up more, and so Ultimate Hunter. Here is a great example. We make a great fight, we push for inhib. Everyone overstays, as one does in solo queue, and you get pushed all the way back. They overcommit, My ultimate just comes off cooldown in this moment, and we're able to turn and end the game. My ultimate being off cooldown way higher than anybody else's is a singular reason why I'm able to dominate mid and late games so easily with the leads I accrue in the early game. It allows for more assassinations, more dominating teamfights, and that's where she really thrives. It also helps you early on, especially around grubs, dragons, and ganks, where you want to have it up as much as possible to actually leverage the power of the champion and the power of Electrocute. Here's where things get really interesting for secondary pages. Yes, you can obviously go Cashback and Cosmic. If you go Booties and Cosmic, I assume you're trolling and have never played a mage in your life. Sork Boots are way too damn valuable for clears, for damage, and guess what? They also make you faster because you have a higher movement speed than base boots or zero boots, and you have it when you need it, which is, as a jungler in the early game, all the time, to move around the map, to go quicker between camps, quicker to rotations, quicker to counter the enemy jungler. The problem is Cashback is a bit, how we say, meh. I see the impact, I get it, it gives you free control wards, whoop-de-doo. Then the Cosmic does give you more smites and more flash, which is why you have a bit of a contrast here between Cosmic and Cashback, Transcendence and say Nimbus or Transcendence and Gathering, or Haste and Cutdown. Now, Legend Haste and Cutdown are by far the best. I've been testing that one, really enjoy the upfront damage. Look at this teamfight here, for example, where I showed you the annihilation of the Soraka. I ended up doing 400 extra damage from Cutdown just from this fight alone. We won the game from it. It also gives you crucial damage at crucial moments, and basically the haste, as I said, having your abilities off cooldown as much as possible with that 15% bonus is really juicy. The comparison comes in then from Transcendence, which while valuable, giving you guaranteed haste and giving that 20% refund in fights past level 11, combined with Nimbus, combined with Gathering, combined with Water Walking, is it better as a combination? Look at this fight in the mid lane here, for example. I decided to test out a lot of these secondary rune pages with the first page being kind of definitely solidified. And I see a Diana rotate to the scenario. I flash knowing she's going to ult, go ahead and try and kill the Thresh, and then kite her out, and I'm able to get off one Q and kill her underneath the turret. The only reason that was possible is because I had Cosmic Insight and my flash was off cooldown. If my flash wasn't off cooldown, I would have probably died there, but maybe if I had Transcendence and I didn't die in a position differently, I'd have my Q up sooner to kill her, and it wouldn't have been such a close call. But at this point, given I was fed, I think I just would have gone haste and Cutdown, and everybody dies. Now you look at the win rates, and the reason the win rates are lower on some of these runes is because people don't maximize them at all, and they don't understand when they can be potent. Hopefully you can see why they would actually be the best, and from all the clips, show the damage that I'm bringing forth. And ultimately, when you talk about playstyles later in the mid and the late game, yeah, she's a dominating teamfighter for disengage, for engage, but look at this Cogmore clip here. I stay out of fog of war, well so I think, show up a little bit late, I'm waiting for my team to engage. I don't want to flash in first year and be annihilated by that composition, that's a really tough game for me. I need them to turn their focus and to leave their backline unavailable for peel. When they do that, immediately I'm flashing in with Nimbus Cloak in this time having movement speed, annihilating the Cogmore with Electrocute, and then repositioning. He was the main damage source, I was the assassin, I was the Elise there, and all of a sudden Vex is flying across the map into my face, I proc some plants, I'm able to get some tick damage and burn kills, 2 kills for me, team carries the fight because no Cogmore, we end the game and win. But Virkayu, what about like level 7, 8 if you get caught or something like that and you have suboptimal runes? Look at this, I'm an idiot, I get hooked. Enemy Kai'Sa and Thresh are really fed. Yeah, but I got Electrocute and Ultimate Hunter, which means it's up when it shouldn't be, and they die because I also have Electrocute. People don't understand QW auto attack for ganks, and people don't understand any of the combos for maximizing damage, and they don't understand that you can obviously also go in and smite and steal Barons, and still kill the enemy jungler because you have Electrocute and Cutdown. Hopefully this resonates. This was a passionate section for me. I know it was long, but that is why I run this rune page. That is why I truly believe it's the best. Hopefully I've convinced you of the way to play the champion with these runes according to my style, and even shown you pro play examples where you want the Electrocute to actually snowball, and then it doesn't really matter that you're not getting multiple combos off in a fight because your Electrocute does more pronounced damage to a singular target while you still get the same benefits of all of the Zyra plants. Now, how I maximize these runes is through dynamic itemization. However, Faded Ashes means that we are always going Leandry's first. You can buy a Dark Seal if you want, if you have the gold. I kind of flex on and off between it now. I don't really make it a default buy as it is, but if I do have the 350, I will purchase it and use it. Most of the time, I'm running the Faded Sorks into the Haunting Guys Leandries. I don't think you should ever mess with that. In pro play, in a more conservative environments, yeah, you can run the Ryle as it gives you the health, the utility, you obviously have the 30% slow, fun, right? Except I've been building those two items for a decade, and I cannot believe people dislike the Mythic era on Zyra. We could build so many more cool things than these two items. However, I do love Leandry's as it is back. You can see here from this fight, I survive with the HP just from Leandry's alone. Pretty juicy. Second though, 99% if you want to 1v9, you want to actually carry on Zyra, you gotta go with the Blackfire Torch. The mana, the haste, the double burn, the extra clearing, the extra plant damage, all of this factors in beautifully. You have Electrocute for single target annihilation combination, you have the plants doing ridiculous amounts of tick damage. Yeah, your survivability goes down the toilet, but that's where your skill comes in. Learn to position properly. You do not need movement speed artificially propping you up. You just need to understand spacing around your plants. Also, that's why we go Red Pet. So if Rylai's is there for survivability and slows, what's wrong with Red Pet giving you 30% slow as well? Yes, it decays, but that's more than enough. So if you hit your Red Pet combo of a QW auto attack, they're slowed. This guarantees your E or your team follow-up. This then allows you to win the fight, because you made the pick and you have the numbers advantage. That's where Zyra's so strong. She's not only an AoE 5-man knockup machine, she's also a single target destroyer. After this, yes, you can go Rylai's if you want, you can go anything else you like, but really I just go with the Crypt Bloom. Maximize your damage, maximize your penetration. The Crypt Bloom really does heal and save your team, as you can see from some of these clips as well. There's almost no downside to this itemization other than your own ability to position. Now yes, Talons and other champions will run on you and kill you. That sucks. And I understand in pro and in other environments you might have less econ, so going Rylai's into Crypt Bloom or something makes a lot more sense for your survivability and utility. But she should also be played with significantly higher econ as well. That being said, if you need to rush a Banshees or Zhonya's for specific environments, you can do. I will say though, I have not gone Zhonya's for quite a while. I feel like the itemization is a little bit off at the moment. Yes, it's great against assassins, but because of the higher econ in the jungle, because of the highest CSPM, because of the fact that you can actually get huge leads, you're less likely to be super far behind assassins who can absolutely one-tap you, and you, with this rune set, can one-tap them. Obviously, Rylai's after Crypt Bloom is possible, Banshees and Zhonya's death caps if you get really fed, although that's largely a rare occurrence. I don't really think you need it. These are the best ways to maximize the abilities, maximize the runes and itemization, and actually thrive as a higher econ jungler, although you do have, as you can see, the lower econ builds that are basically just very standard. And that is where a lot of Zyra's weakness lies. She is an above all mage. If you have an all-in composition, look at this from KT all-in the Kenya composition. That's exactly how you do it. If you're Viego, you just need to get one little bit of a reset, get on her face when cooldowns are up. There's very little she can do, even with specific itemization. So your job as Zyra is to fully understand how to maximize my spacing and pick potential around that. And all of the builds and the combos and the runes and the items we will talk about in this video are about maximizing that mage kit while minimizing your ability to be countered by all-in and cringe champions. For first clear strategies, obviously it's pretty damn simple. Set up your plants, start the red buff, smite off the wall to the Krugs, and you carry on going planting and spamming Qs as necessary. Please remember when you are actually going upward that you kite your camps, you can really drag them quite far. You do not need to hang around for camps to actually finish off, and the tick damage on the pet plus your plants is a lot higher than most people think. However, when you are playing something like this, you will be invaded by a lot of champions that can just run at you and kill you. That's why I really do advise doing a lot of reverse clears, as it can give you a lot of flexibility. For example, here we start on the red and I plan to go to blue, Gromp, Wolves, Raptors, Krugs, right? Because I'm against a Viego. He will probably start red and maybe try and invade me on my blue, take it away, who knows. What ends up happening is he actually tries to invade me on my red and Krugs. And because I'm reverse clearing, I get the benefit of seeing that thanks to early vision and then taking his whole top side. This is what I want to accomplish as a jungler playing Zyra. I do not want to be running into enemy junglers like Gwens and Viegos and anything that might kill me. This just doesn't play into the jungle spacing concept. I want to be far away from them, counter jungling them, getting level 6 as soon as possible, and then obviously leveraging that power in at least a couple of ganks early so I can get grubs and maximize my ultimate usage. However, you also might think, well, what happens, Virkayu, if you get late invade and you can't set up your plants and you're gonna struggle to actually go ahead and get your full clear going? Like in this situation, my solo laners troll me by bringing the whole team to me. I just leave, I don't flash, I go to Wolves, I don't have the setup, that sucks. But you can still do Wolves Grump very, very quickly into the blue and then easily take their camps on the bottom side. Because you clear so much faster, as long as you create space between you and the aggressive jungler, you will always have a lead. But the goal is, my friends, the full clear either starting on the buff or the red. Just ensure that you walk out of the bush at 1 minute so that you have your plants set up. Remember, the passive plants have 30 seconds of lifespan, and that is the best way to actually play the game and get the fastest clears. I'll leave a link to Shapeshift doing the fastest Zyra Jungle clears possible. There is a little bit of RNG involved, but the most important thing is less about the full clear speed. You should always be done around 3 minutes, even if that's a little slower, 3 or 5. You'll live, you have a lot of downtime to go ahead and look for ganks, get the vision, counter jungle if they're doing some weird gankings. You're all about rinse, clear, fast tempo, first to places, counter jungling, set up your counter ganks, and for that we need to talk about a high level 1v9 example. Let's go. Alright, with all of that covered, now let's quickly skim through a 1v9 carry game just to show you what the goals are with Zyra Jungle. Yes, full clear first rotation, that's what we want to do. If you are invaded and compromised, you can always vertical jungle, you can always steal their stuff. I've showcased that in the previous section. We're starting off here finishing the clear, and you can see the little bit of a dance around the scuttle crab. I am able to secure it, go back to base. From the base here, ideally, and in most situations for Zyra Jungle, you want to do a full second sequence. The only time you wouldn't do that is if you can definitely gank top lane or definitely gank mid lane around your camp spawns. You want a fast level 6. I will leave a video in the description below for my exact early game strategies regarding these clears so you can kind of adapt them as you want to play. But the 1v9 thing is also knowing that you need to rotate 2 fights, 2 events. Your fast clear speeds and your ability to leave situations and kite out camps allows you to rotate a lot quicker. Here, if the enemy jungler makes a mistake and you can't counter jungle him, or you don't want to and you know you're strong enough with your rune set and your current itemization to actually fight, go ahead and do exactly that. As I said, Talk Boots and Dark Seal are obviously going to be the better things to rush. I kind of like to flex a little bit depending on if I'm farming more and so on, and the burn damage from Faded Ashes is always very good. Both feel very nice to rush. And therefore it's okay to cut off your sequencing to stop a dragon and cut people off. You want to prioritize grubs 100%, and you want to ensure you're getting at least 2 to 3 ganks or rotations to situations before you hit level 6. If you do that properly, you will get a nice 6 minutes 30 level 6, and that's the power you want. Why? Because Zyra with the lead on the rune set and builds I've shown you allows you to totally control rivers. You take your topside quadrant, you see the Viego finally going to the grubs, you go ahead and you contest, but because you have that huge advantage and you have your ultimate, now you can actually battle him. And obviously having Faded Ashes and Sword Boots helps. Viego uses his ult prematurely, you knock him up, you crack him down, 3 grubs for you. Once you understand the combos and you understand everything we've spoken about in this video, now it's about applying it, and you're seeing across this quick skim of a gameplay where we're using the combos, where we're using specific plans, how we're using flash and positioning around plants and the ultimate. And because the Olaf on the top side actually does have his flash backup, I'm gonna go ahead and just ensure I flash kill that sucker as well. Now, we go back to base. Because you took the topside quadrant, grubs, and killed Olaf, you know the Viego's gonna be on the bottom side. At this stage, you are actively looking to narrow down the jungle spacing. I don't want to be far away from him now, because I can actually beat him. However, as always, if your lanes are pushed in and you've got a bit of a negative scenario and you are the true 1v9 in the game, don't go ahead and just run into the river and try 1v3. That's dumb, you're a mage, you will die. Do your quadrant, because you can do it so quickly, nice sequencing, blue grump wolves to, path upside, wait for your bottom lane to showcase down. And here is where you're seeing the ultimate hunter. Because I already have 4 out of the 5 stacks, my ultimate is gonna come off cooldown as it does right here just in time for this dragon contest. I play around my ultimate much like you would say a fiddlestick. You don't need it to do things, but it's really crucial to have that when you actively want to go for river fights. And here you can see we go with the EWWQ into the R because we want to guarantee the double slows for people in the vicinity, we want to guarantee the knock-up, and we want to then position down so that the Viego cannot get to us and has to fight around the plants. Remember, always keep your plant spacing, use your auto attacks and weave them in and out, chase down the Ezreal, and because you have Legend Haste as well as Cut Down, wait for your E to come off cooldown, hit that, chuck an auto attack, QW, and he will die. Obviously, if you have no W, that's fine, it doesn't matter at this particular stage. And this would be a perfect situation to compare runes. Would the Comet have done more value here than the Electrocute? Unlikely, especially if the focus is kill their enchanter, kill their primary target. Now our team can immediately focus on someone else. That is an important thing as well. Would Water Walking have given me more AP? Sure, but did I really need more when I've got Eyeball, my ultimate up, when I wouldn't have my ultimate up if I didn't have Ultimate Hunter, as well as Cheap Shot? Categorically, no, you do more damage in this moment with this rune set. And because of that, you get kills, you get a dragon, you get your topside quadrant, you get to reset, you got a Leandries. Here you obviously could be stacking a Dark Seal. As I said, I kind of like to not use it sometimes. I should always buy it, I understand that. But as you know, I'm a scientist, I like to kind of experiment and see how things feel. You have Zork's Dark Seal plus Faded Ashes, you should be in an extremely strong position. And for Zyra, the biggest thing also is when there are downtimes to your sequencing, go and look for action, go and look for play. Is it a counter jungle? Is it an invade? Is it an objective? Is it a gank in the bottom lane? Use your Q plants to force Arcane Shift out from the Ezreal, chuck your E out. If he's intelligent and decides to dodge it, well guess what? Because you have Ultimate Hunter, it's 100% up again, and you're just using it for damage there, smite an auto attack, and there goes Ezreal. And then you can turn back and ensure you guarantee the kill in the center. And now it can be quite obvious to you, alright, we should go back to do crab and sequencing. However, at this particular stage, while a full phase clear would be great, there is an objective on the map that you want to secure. So go ahead, cross mid lane, try get a gank off, and force that pressure on the river. Say, look, I have the lead, I'm really strong, let's go ahead and snack the grubs. And you'll notice a lot of enemy junglers just can't keep up with the tempo. They can't track you properly, they don't know exactly what you're doing because you do it so quickly. Once you've done this, go for the gank top lane, burn ghost and ultimate. Don't overchase the kill, but always look for those smooth translation plays. Yes, the sequencing is your baseline, but if you can cut and use your lead and your runes appropriately, you should always be in control of the river. That's where obviously water walking is useful, but I don't really feel you need that added damage either. Now what I love doing is what I call a loop path. It's where you kind of start off, say, on the grubs, you go back into your quadrant, you end up back in the same position for either, ganking top lane again, invading counter jungling, or ganking on the mid lane. Because we know Vex now has no flash thanks to the gank we just did, you want to double down on that. Zyra loves to burn flashes and 100% guarantee a subsequent kill. Her E, as I said, is a cast time. Yes, you can buffer it, but it is dodgeable. It isn't something that's point and click. So the more you burn flash and then make use of that and use your full ganks on the combo, the better you're going to be. And then you can do more of the same. Do your quadrants, right? You full back to your blue side quadrant, fully sequence that and look bottom lane. The only time you would not do that is if you need to rotate over once again to a scenario. You saw from the footage earlier, Zyra is really good at holding turrets, at stopping dives, at absorbing that pressure without giving much up. That's why I loved her in support, and I've had a lot of clips of me doing that in support. You can also do it in bases when you're really far behind. Using your plants, your electrocute, your damage, your comets, whatever rune set you're necessarily going, the champion is really good at stopping enemies from ending games or taking turrets, and you really want to play into that power throughout all of the mid and the late game phases where you might be needed. So don't get caught out in this particular scenario and, I don't know, not kill the Senna for zero reason because you wanted to farm Grump and Wolves. That's a general jungle thing, but Zyra's particularly good at that, better than you think. And I've already alluded to the mid and the late game kind of team fighting mechanics that you want to look for here. I've also mentioned the counters. If a Viego gets a reset or gets in your face and he's able to kill you, same thing for Xin Chaos, for Olafs, for Jarvans, for Hekarims, for Sejuanis. Yeah, you can beat them up with your sequencing and so on, but if they catch you in the open field and perhaps you are not as far ahead as you'd like to be, they can and they will kill you and eviscerate you. As you saw from the pro play clip, all ends are the things that are going to stop you in your tracks, and thus you want to understand grouping and peeling and playing around that mechanism as well. Naturally, combat and Rylai's and utility will enable you to do a bit more in these scenarios, but if you're simply looking to assassinate Viegos over the wall for dragons or assassinate over the wall Vexes, then you can do that as well. It's really down to how you want to maximize the comet versus electrocute power spikes, how you want to focus on being an assassin or more of a zoning mage. Do you want to be a DPS mage? And guess what? She's always a DPS mage no matter what you build. Hopefully this guide has given you absolutely everything you need to know about Zyra. Best of luck in your climb. If you want to know more about how to jungle at a level of a challenger player, click the video on your screen now.